What's going on, guys? JPS back for another video, and today we're going to be reacting to, is it time for Europe to ditch America? Now, this is a very pertinent issue to the current times and global state of affairs. This video is from January 10th of this year. Obviously, now we're moving into April almost, so quite a lot has happened in the past 2 or so months, and none of it really good news. It's all pretty much the same thing. United States being a bully, doing way too much, and just making everyone hate us, bro. Like, we don't have to do this. It's so frustrating, guys, as an American living in this country. And I promise you that many of my fellow Americans are just as frustrated. And it's really all people talk about nowadays, especially for the past few weeks and honestly months. Ever since Trump basically got into office, this is all people have been talking about, is how frustrated they are and how appalled they are with the current actions that our president has been taking. Tariffs, obviously things didn't go down too well with the Ukrainian president. And I'm sure a lot of it has Europe questioning, how can we just boycott the U.S. as much as possible and remove them from our interactions? But it's not that easy with the war, and it's a lot going on, guys. So apologies on behalf of my country. It's been insane, but this is a real question. It's a very real question. I've seen calls recently to stop, buying American equipment, American materials, things like that, and to start purchasing from within Europe. But let's just see. Let's get right into this. It should be an exciting watch. As someone who's very apolitical, even I am tuned in and turned up over this, guys. It's really how bad it is. So I feel very bad for you guys, and this is not the impression that we want to make on the rest of the world. I can promise you that. So yeah, with that being said, let's get right into this.
For most of modern history, Europe, or at least Western Europe, and the United States have been best mates. The two are connected by cultural, economic, and military ties, most obviously manifest in NATO, and despite the occasional hiccup, have moved in ideological lockstep for much of the past few decades. However, in the past few years or so, the transatlantic relationship has come under unprecedented strain, and things only look likely to get more difficult as Trump sets up what looks sure to be an antagonistic second term. So in this video, we're going to look at some of the various points of tension straining this relationship, and whether Europe and America could really fall out for good. Who's the best politician right now? Hear our thoughts and argue with us on our podcast, The World Leader Leaderboard. Find it on the TLDR Podcast YouTube channel or in your favorite podcast app. So as we see it, there are both short-term, Trump-related pressures on the transatlantic relationship and long-term, more structural pressures that won't go away even if Trump is succeeded by a more traditional Democrat in 2028. Let's start with those short-term Trump-related pressures though. The first one, and the one that's most in the news at the moment, is Trump's interest in Greenland and his apparent disdain for internationally recognized borders more generally. For anyone who somehow missed this, earlier in the week, Trump reiterated his intention to buy Greenland from Denmark, and then on Tuesday he gave a press conference where he refused to rule out using military force to take the territory, arguing that the United States needed Greenland for, quote, economic security and national security reasons. Unsurprisingly, this ruffled some diplomatic feathers in Europe. And on Wednesday morning, France's foreign minister basically said that the EU would defend Greenland if the United States tried to invade. But even if Trump doesn't invade Greenland, his apparent disdain for internationally recognized borders, as evidenced by his other comments on Canada and Panama, as well as reoccurring reports that he's planning to invade northern Mexico without the Mexican government's approval, will strain the transatlantic relationship. European politicians
he just is talking way too much and just saying such inflammatory things. Like, how can you not expect Europeans to not be angry? Like, of course they're going to be angry. Sorry, that was a double negative. It was hard to...
European politicians and governments are generally a bit more concerned about international law than their American counterparts, and especially their Republican counterparts. This isn't us Brits taking a jab at the US, by the way. It's just true that the US is more in the habit of breaking international law or going against the international consensus than Europe, as evidenced by the plethora of UN treaties that the US has refused to sign or ratify. As such, Europe will be especially keen to protect international norms, particularly when it comes to states' territorial integrity, because they've spent the past few years accusing Russia of breaking international law by violating Ukraine's internationally recognized borders. If they stand by while Trump either threatens to or actually does violate territorial integrity of smaller states like Canada, Panama, and Mexico, it will undermine their argument against Russia, and they'll be seen as hypocrites by the international community. The second Trump-related pressure on the transatlantic relationship is Elon Musk. Musk is a close ally of Trump's and has emerged as a vocal supporter.
This has just become like so weird too, guys. Watching this all happen, this Doge and stuff. Like, listen, no one should be that close with the president if you're not. Like, why? He's just becoming close with like the most volatile people possible.
Is a close ally of Trump's and has emerged as a vocal supporter of right-wing, anti-establishment politicians across Europe, including Tommy Robinson in the UK, Giorgia Meloni in Italy, and the AfD in Germany. Unsurprisingly, this hasn't endeared him to the more established figures in Europe, who are also worried about Musk's influence on European political discourse via X, which Musk has started using to amplify certain issues, sometimes via disinformation. If European politicians do decide to take action against Musk, which seems increasingly likely at this point, it will doubtless cause some friction with the Trump administration, given that Trump has basically endorsed Musk's meddling. The third and final Trump-related pressure is Ukraine. Now, we've done a whole video on Trump's plan for Ukraine before, but the TLDR is that while there is some ambiguity here, Trump has signaled his intention to wind down American support for Ukraine, which has provoked some anxiety in Europe, where there's a pretty broad pro-Ukraine consensus at the moment. Anyway, those are the three big Trump-related pressures on the transatlantic relationship. But a myopic focus on Trump obscures the fact that US-EU relations have been under strain for a while now, thanks to some deeper structural factors. The first of these is China. China is actually a rare point of bipartisan agreement within the United States. Biden broadly continued with Trump's hawkish China policy and actually sounded more bellicose on the question of Taiwan, saying explicitly on multiple occasions that the US would indeed protect Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion, implying a departure from America's long-standing policy of strategic ambiguity. But while Europe shares some of America's concerns about Chinese trade practices and the CCP's authoritarian tendencies, European countries are generally far less hawkish on Taiwan and nowhere near as worried about the supposed Chinese threat to American hegemony. This was made glaringly apparent when, on his way back from a trip to Beijing, Macron warned that the great risk for Europe is that it gets caught up in crises that are not ours, i.e. Taiwan. This caused quite a kerfuffle in Washington when it happened. But what was actually most notable about this episode was that basically zero European politicians came out against Macron. The second related tension is around America's newfound penchant for protectionism. Again, this is a bipartisan issue, and it's been motivated by America's anxieties about Chinese dominance in certain supply chains. This is why Biden kept almost all of Trump's tariffs and actually increased tariffs on certain items that he deemed to be strategically significant, as well as introducing massive subsidies for American manufacturers via the Inflation Reduction Act. This hasn't gone down well with Europe, not just because Trump's tariffs and the Inflation Reduction Act directly affect European companies, but also because, more generally, Europe is more anxious about the global turn to protectionism than the US is. Unlike the US, Europe lacks a domestic energy supply, a wealthy consumer base to buy its products, or the fiscal space to afford expensive protectionist measures like the Inflation Reduction Act, which is why they're generally keener on a more open global trade environment.
I mean, okay, guys, it feels like almost in every way Europe is getting screwed because, again, we're trying to put our country first in certain ways. But what I don't think the United States realizes, or at least our administration, is that you can't just put your country first. Like, there's going to be trade-offs with all these different things that, first of all, he's just saying verbally. There's already negative effects from that, just from being diplomatic and keeping our relationship strong. But once these actions are in place, I get it. We're trying to make everything American made and bolster our own economy and keep things local, which is cool, but like you can't just cut people off. And he's just moving, not doing things the right way. He's moving crazy, in my opinion. And I can definitely understand why Europeans are frustrated. There's just so many reasons to be frustrated. Like almost everything that's going on right now is like not working out in anyone else's favor. And it doesn't feel like it's working in our favor either, guys, because no one here is happy. Like everyone is stressed the hell out and wondering what the next thing is going to be. What's the next move? Like it's just everyone is like on the edge of their seats. Like, oh, everyone's craving some stability right now, I think.
Act, which is why they're generally keener on a more open global trade environment. The third point of tension is the Middle East. Now, there's always been an uncomfortable transatlantic asymmetry over the Middle East because America just has more influence in the region. But Europe is also more affected by its negative externalities, i.e., when the region is destabilized, it's Europe that's affected by the subsequent uptick in migration and often terrorism. The tension has become all the more apparent with Israel, with Europe generally pushing harder for de-escalation than the US has, and being more critical of Israel's violations of international law. And transatlantic tensions over the Middle East look likely to increase in Trump's second term, given that Trump will probably pursue a relatively hardline Iran policy. And last month, the Wall Street Journal even reported that Trump is considering a direct, preemptive strike on Iran's nuclear facilities once he takes office. This is unlikely to go down well in Europe, which has always wanted the US to take a more conciliatory approach to Iran, both because it worries about the geopolitical fallout and because if sanctions were lifted, Iran could be an alternative oil and gas supplier for Europe. All in all, while no one can predict the future, it's at least true that there are both short and long-term points of tension for the transatlantic relationship, which will probably only get worse over the next 4 years, potentially presaging a more permanent split, something that could lead to some interesting power struggles. The question, though, is who'd come out on top? Who would be left as the most influential person? That's what we're trying to find out with our official most influential person list, which we need your help with. So if you want to help us decide on who the most influential person in the entire world...
Listen, influence doesn't mean much if you're not influencing for good. Look at Mr. Beast, man. Listen, I watched Mr. Beast before he had 100,000 subscribers. Like, actually, he used to do crazy things. He used to read the dictionary all the way through. He used to say the word 10,000 times on camera, stream for like 12 hours. He's always had the fight and everything, but I fear that the money has taken over him at this point, unfortunately. Like, look at that smile, bro. Come on.
Description to cast your own ranking and how they wield awards.
Oh, that's cool. I don't know who the most influential person is, and if that's an interesting question, so... Anyways, guys, that was Is It Time for Europe to Ditch America? I don't think it's time for Europe to ditch America just yet. I don't think that's going to happen. But again, like if things continue, this is only like the first couple of months in this new administration. We still got like almost 4 years. So if things continue at this rate, I would not be surprised if you guys cut us off in more ways than one. Listen, but there's a reliance on us for certain things, so it's not that simple, and I get that, but I just apologize, guys. I wish things were simpler now, and I think people could also just be more courteous and friendly. Like, again, all the inflammatory and rude things that are being said just don't help at all. Like, if you're going to do something or enact a policy, there's ways to go about it, but I guess no one cares. Whatever. Oh, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.